Welcome, everybody. Season 1, Episode 9 of the Limit Podcast. Matt Gibson here with Phil Hunt. Today, Phil, I figured we would just sit down, talk about some fishing, talk about what's going on here in the state, also talk about what you have going on with PH Custom and then the new venture, PH Fishing. So, how have you been down your way this spring?
It's been wet and windy, I can tell you that. It's been a cold, windy spring.
It sure has.
Yeah. I've had a busy day. I was trying to rush. I held you up for doing this.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right. It's no problem at all. Yeah, it's that time of year where everybody's busy trying to catch up with either things that we had to delay a little bit because of weather and things like that. But hopefully we'll get it. I know you've been getting out a little bit. So how's the bite been down in kind of southern Indiana?
Well, it's been. I mean, it's getting better. The smallies have really been on. I've been catching a lot on a pink spinner bait and out on the flats, but now they're actually spawning. And I know the tourneys this weekend down at Brookville. I didn't get a fish. I turkey hunted with my daughter and her boyfriend, but they. I think everybody I know that caught them really good. The guys I talked to, I don't think the winner in the one came scoping, but these guys were catching them off the beds on perspective mode. Them smallies are 7, 8 to maybe 11 feet deep. You can't see them with your naked eye, and those guys are just wrecking them. So
is that pretty typical for your lake down there? I mean, is that kind of what happens? Is those smallmouth tend to spawn a little bit deeper, or?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you see them in 2, 3 feet of water, but a lot of the big ones are spawning where a lot of years it's really clear and you can see 7 or 8 foot deep when it's, okay, when you're in like a protected area or you got a bright sunny day, especially in the middle of the day. But this year we had all the flooding and the lake, was up 14 feet. It was below pool. And then it was like 10 feet or 9 feet above pool. And then they drew it down almost a foot a day. And the water's been kind of stained. So you can't see kind of as deep as you did, and I fished a tourney down there a couple of weeks ago and I thought I could win on a spinner bait. It was going to be real windy, but it trashed everything out. It blew so hard during the night that all the banks, the flat, the smallies are mostly spawning on the flats on the main lake, and they're not protected at all. And the areas that I was on were all blowed out, and we still caught 11 or 12 keepers, but we just didn't get on any big ones. And some of the guys did really good. Hats off to them. I think Chris Burke won. So and his partner and I'm gonna apologize to his partner because I don't know who he fished with, but I know that Chris won, him and whoever he fished with. So congratulations to them. And Mike Bennett fished with his wife, and Mike Bennett got second. I think Chris and him had 16 something, and Mike and his wife had 15 even, I think, or right at 15 pounds. So congratulations to them because it was a crappy day. It was cold and blew like wild and sprinkled and rained off and on, and you definitely wasn't going to see anything with your eye. I can tell you that.
Yeah, it seems like we're in that trend right now in Indiana where it's beautiful during the week when we're busy, and then on the weekends the weather is just terrible. So
every weekend's been that way, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I turkey hunted this weekend with my my youngest daughter's boyfriend's never killed a bird, and he's really getting into hunting. And we hunted and got drowned. It had to go get dried out, dry our clothes, and went and got drowned again Saturday. And then the birds didn't gobble very good. And, I took my youngest daughter Friday, and it was really good. It was sunny, it was windy, but they were gobbling. And we finally, we worked this group of birds for 3 hours, and she killed one of the gobblers. And I want her boyfriend Mike to get one in a bad way, but I think this weekend is going to be really nice. He works all week, so he's one of the kids who actually work, believe it or not, and he works hard doing construction. So I'm hoping this weekend will be his weekend, and after this weekend, then I'm going to fish a bunch.
Yeah. So you mentioned we're kind of in that spawn, right, kind of in that funk, and I know you and I have talked that, man, PH Custom, you guys have been busy with orders. So what are kind of the hot baits for this time of year that you're really seeing?
Well, I'm afraid a bunch of guys are going to be mad at me that ordered them because the big deal is wake baits. In the South, I've sold more wake ups and definitely more VWs. And I know that's a time sensitive bait. There's like a window there. I mean, you can catch them on it year round, but there's a window when it's really good. And I don't have lips. I've not had lips for the for that in a while. And I mean, I had a hard time getting circuit board material, and I got that. And then the guys that I actually have the lips cut out on a water jet machine, and they're doing the best they can. So I'm really backed up because I don't know if somebody wrote something about them or whatever happened, but man, we got slammed. And you know, between scoping and fuel prices and interest rates and everybody head over heels in debt, you know, fishing's it's a disposable income.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of, I mean, you know, and there's some guys who they always going to have money. It don't matter. They got money to do what they want, but there's so many young guys. And I remember being in that boat when I just wanted to fish so bad, you know what I mean? And by the time you pay for a truck and a boat, and then you don't have a lot of money, and balsa baits are expensive. And but all at once it took off. So gas prices haven't really came down. So I don't know what it is. And there's more scoping now than ever. You about can't compete on my home lake without doing it, doesn't seem like. So I don't know what happened. I mean, I hope that's kind of indicative of everybody in the tackle industry. I hope everybody's starting to see it pick up now.
Yeah, it's interesting, and yeah, that. So when we're talking about a wake bait, like I think of like the kind of the crankbait size wake baits, but these aren't those. These are longer baits.
Yeah, and I should have had one ready, huh? Because I would have to get up and go get one. I didn't know what we were going to talk about for sure, but there must be a hell of a wake bait bite in the Carolinas and Tennessee and Kentucky.
Yeah,
I know a lot of guys are throwing them at night. Like I build the wake up I have for a while now, and I did build it for Buckeye. You know, people think I stole it from them, and that's not what happened. The guy that built the original wake up, he didn't build them anymore. So Roy and Jeremy at on Buckeye, I built it for them, and they wanted out of the balsa part. So we just swapped some money that they had owed me for baits for that. It was a really good deal on my part. You know, it worked out perfect for me. And then, of course, I got the old school line. I got the VW, which is a little cheaper model of bait, but it's still an awesome bait. And
it is.
To be honest, personally, I can throw whichever one I want, you know. And the VW is about $5 less, and that's because of the way it's clear coated and things like that. And I personally I like the VW better than the Wake Up, but the Wake Up sells 10 to 1 over the VW, and I've never really. I don't understand that, because in my opinion, and this is probably a stupid thing to say if you're the one selling them, I like the VW better.
Yeah, I'm partial to that VW as well, but that wake up does have it is a little thinner, kind of in the middle, and it's definitely has a unique shape. It's a great bait too. Both of them are really great baits, and man, what I like about them too is it seems like those fish really like to get on those baits early in the year too, as far as
when the water's cold.
Yeah.
It's an awesome bait. You know, they're minnow shaped. Anybody that wants to see them can jump on our site, PH Custom Lures, and if you get on the old school icon, if you want to see the VW, click on the PH logo if you want to see the wake up. They're shaped a lot like a floating Rapala. You know, they're a minnow bait, balsa wood. They cast really good. You know, I usually throw them on like a 7.2 medium heavy, but it's a softer medium heavy. And I throw them with either 15-pound mono or 30-pound braid, and you could throw them pretty far.
Yeah,
I mean, they cast good. And there's something about it when the water, especially on mountain lakes, when the water's in the 50s, even if you get them slick days, you know, sometimes, I mean, they'll really come up. When you wind them on the surface, they won't dive. They just they wobble and they roll on the surface, kind of like the old timers did with the long A. You know what I mean? They would wind that long A, and that's not so easy to do. And I know guys would bend the lips on them and stuff, you know, heat them and bend them down so they're less of an angle. And then you got the guys, you know, they throw the red fin still. A lot of guys throw them for a wake bait. And
yeah, it's a really easy bait to work too. I mean, you cast it out there and you wind it. I mean, that's really it. And you can wind it over anything.
They get it.
Yep. Yeah, you can wind it over grass. You can wind it over rock, over stumps, over basically anything. And man, does it get bit? So
yeah, it seems like slow and steady normally, just enough to make it wobble, And then what I get, what's insane, it's like almost like a cult of guys, is guys on these mountain lakes in Virginia, and I don't know exactly what lakes they're fishing, but I know I get a lot of them from Virginia guys, and then like especially Laurel Lake in Kentucky and Cumberland and Del Hollow and Smith Mountain Lake, Smith Lake. Them guys are fishing them at night during the shad spawn, and they get up there and parallel the bank. I know my brother and them do it a lot. Him and Rodney Thompson, a bunch of guys down there. They don't even want to fish in the daylight right now. The shad are spawning, and they parallel that bait and keep it up there and just wind it. It doesn't have a rattle in it or anything, and they catch monster walleyes, especially at night, besides the smallmouth, spots, and largemouth. And then they catch a lot of stripers. And of course, sometimes them really big stripers, that balsa bait don't hold up so good to those, 20, 25 pounders. But I know that's a really big deal right now in that area. And anybody that wants one right away that lives in that London, Corbin area, Saddlebrook Outdoors, they have some in stock. I don't know how many they have left. And then another great store I got that sells them is Hammond's Fishing down by Lake Lanier in Georgia. Jason Hammonds is a great guy. Anybody in that area should definitely stop in there and check them out. I'm sure all the guys that live there probably do already, but Jason sells a buttload of my wake baits every year. And I bet he's about to choke me right now because he's got a huge order in, and I know he's probably sweating it thinking he's going to miss the bite. But I've got several hundred bodies made, painted. We're just waiting on lips. So.
Yep. Yeah. It's big things are happening, and it definitely feels like you guys are gaining some momentum there at PH Custom, but also you have this new venture, and we've talked about it a little bit, kind of hinted around of what things to come, but PH Fishing, that's really starting to take off and starting to take up some of your time as well.
Yeah. I know that the balsa is a niche market, and they're not a cheap bait to build. They're not a cheap bait to buy. I get it. I wish we could sell them a lot cheaper. And primarily, it's like there's just certain guys that's going to pay $25 or $20 for a bait. We got baits from the old school line is a little cheaper bait. You can get into balsa baits for I think $12 to $15 on that in that line. And the difference is how they're built. They're still awesome baits. Yep. There's not as much detail. They're not handled as many times and stuff. And but I wanted to appeal to other people, and so I actually took on a couple business partners, and we started PH Fishing. And PH Fishing is a division of PH Custom Lures. And, PH Custom Lures, I've always done hand-tied jigs and buzzers, but they're limited availability. And like Tackle Warehouse is always sold out of buzzers because you can't find people to tie and everything. But these guys always wanted to be part of the fishing industry. They're great guys. It's going to be a great partnership. And so we've got a line of spinner baits, jigs, buzz baits. Right here, if you can see this, you know what that is. Can you tell? Like a little bitty marabou jigs. We got these for the smallie guys coming, and those are made in America. The marabou jigs are all hand tied here in the country. We also got a line of get where I can see the bucktail. I don't know if you can see that if it's focusing. The bucktail jig, and these are just sneak peeks. Tackle Warehouse already has orders in for all this, and their initial order was really big. I've also got to get one out here. We've never did underspins, and for now, I've got an underspin, a really nice one. Can you see that?
Yeah.
It's hair. They all got premium hooks. They got ball bearing swivels on them. But I guess guys are telling me now that there's starting to be a market for like the hair jigs and like the underspins for the scopers and the guys fishing for spots like in the wintertime. So we get all this stuff is coming. Hopefully within 2 or 3 weeks, I'll have all the hair jigs to Tackle Warehouse. It might take longer to get them on my site. The prices are really good too. A lot of our hair jigs are going to sell for about, if you look on there, you better buy 2 for about what most people are selling 1. And there's really if you look, there's not many people making hair jigs. And there's very, very few making the marabou jigs for the smallmouth guys up north. And, we got swim jigs, football jigs, got two styles of flipping jigs. One has a 30-strand weed guard. One has a 40-strand weed guard. The Timber Tamer has a 40-strand weed guard that comes through wood a little bit better. And as long as I can get tires for like the spinner baits, the jigs, and the buzzers, they're all going to have hand-tied skirts and stuff on them. I never liked the idea. Nothing frosts me up more than to go buy a jig. You get a black and blue jig, and some of the blue's on the top, some of it's on the bottom, and I guess maybe I'm too picky, but or you get it out of the package, and all the skirts on one side, and you can see the entire lead shank, the collar on the other side, and that pisses me off. So, like all of ours, when you buy a black and blue jig from us, it's black on the top, blue on the bottom, because everything in nature, if you think about this, is dark on the back, light on the belly. So I feel like if you've got a black and chartreuse jig or whatever, the chartreuse should be on the bottom, not scattered all over it. And I know everybody's got their opinion, and hopefully lots and lots of people have the same one I did, and they'll just buy the crap out of our jigs,
No, I totally agree. And I'm not going to say their name on this podcast, but I just purchased 4 or 5 jigs. Most of the time I make my own jigs, but purchased 4 or 5 jigs, and I think I got one out of the package that was good, and the rest of them
are junk.
Either bunched up on one side, or there's the one of them the skirt was on sideways, and it's like, man, that's an awful lot of money for me to be spending on a jig that isn't.
Because you probably paid $5 for them, or $6, didn't you?
Yep, $6. Yeah.
Yeah, and you ever think that we would see the time when you would have to pay $5 or $6 for a jig? And for $5 or $6, I think, which almost all the jigs now have good hooks in them, but I think that they should have nice skirts. And then like, I got an old chatterbait out of the box the other day, and I had slid a skirt on it with, like with the rubber collar. Mm-hmm. And I took the original skirt off and replaced it with a different skirt. I took it out, all the freaking stuff fell off as soon as I took it out, because that band had rotten. So I'm 60. I started tying jigs when I was probably 13. There's a place, the Indiana guys will know this. There's a place over at Mooresville below Indy and called Tackle Service Center. Remember them?
Yep.
And when I was like 13, my dad bought me, they had like jig tying classes and buzzbait making classes. And that was my 13th birthday present. Me and my dad, and I think my brother went. We all went over there, and we learned how to tie jigs and buzzers. And God, man, when I tied so many jigs, when my dad worked at D&M, it was a factory, and I tied hair jigs for years, all through my teenage years, and I've made them my whole life. And I never wanted to make them for anybody else, because to be honest, I've tied so many, and I've tied thousands of them since PH came in, and they were on Tackle Warehouse. And I actually discontinued them we took them off Tackle Warehouse's site because I couldn't keep up tying them. So I'm hoping this new venture, we're going to have people to tie them and keep the price down. So you better buy a hand-tied jig for about it will be just about the same as everybody else's, regular jigs. And it's hard to know about colors too, because I've made colors that I know like just catch the crap out of them, and not just regionally, because I fished a lot of different places around the country too. And, you can't give them away. And then there'll be some other color that you look at it and you're like, I would never throw that. And it sells like freaking wild. So,
yeah, you look at pink.
It's hard to know.
Like pink right now is the hottest color in bass fishing. And
gosh, thanks to Lee Livesey.
Yeah, exactly. 3-4 years ago, you couldn't give a pink bait away.
I know. And I've always thrown them. I won quite a lot of money at Cumberland on a pink spinnerbait, and I normally throw pink cotton candy, which is a little more of a subdued. It's not like the fluorescent. I've got the fluorescent pink skirts and stuff too. But now Lee Livesey's ruined all that. I guess like the guys at Tackle Warehouse told me they sold out of pink, everything pink that day. When they aired that, it was all gone immediately. They didn't have anything pink left.
Yeah. Yeah, I think guys forget about some of those colors like that. And we've talked about in the past too on the podcast, even how some of those colors that just kind of fell by the wayside. And you think, back to, yellow used to be the color, brown. Brown's coming back a little bit, but it's funny how everything goes in cycles like that.
Yeah. Yeah. My whole life, and I don't know, like you're in your 40s, right? You're a little younger than I am.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, like you could buy the Bass Pro jigs, and they actually had white fiber guards in them, almost looked like something out of a toothbrush, and they would have gold hooks in them, and they would be like Sproat style hooks in them, and they were Johnny Morse jigs, and we used to throw those, and that was back in the days of pork. And my whole life, I have caught so many big fish, especially early in the year, on a black and orange hair jig, black with a little orange in the bottom, or black with a little yellow. And I would I'm like dying to come out with a line of PH bucktail jigs for flipping and throwing in the spring, but I don't even know if guys would buy a black and orange or a black and yellow or.
Well, back when I was, let's see, that would have been probably I would say mid to early 90s. Remember when guys used to flip a white jig? You hardly ever see anybody flip a white jig anymore.
No, they swim them, but I'm going to tell you something right now. I've won a regional or two on it, or one regional, and I don't know how many events, and I don't know how popular this is. I did see where, what is the company that sponsors Jason Christie with soft plastics? Is it not Big Bite? Is it
Yum?
What is it? Yum. They have a bait like this, but in the fall, I can't tell you how many fish I've caught on different styles of soft plastics, but my favorite is a tube or a beaver, something with a shad profile, kind of, And I throw light smoke with big silver flake in it. It's all flashy in the water, and I definitely want to have that like in my line of tubes. I'll have tubes hopefully in 2 weeks. I got packaging coming, but eventually as we expand the tube line, I cannot tell you how good them fish in the fall when they're biting, when they're on a shad bite, how many fish you can catch flipping that light smoke with all that silver flake. And when the water's really clear, I really like just a clear, like a clear beaver but it's loaded with silver flakes. It flashes like a spinnerbait blade. And guys get so stuck on, what you read about and what you see, they will eat that shad colored bait in the fall.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that white tube, because actually what I do, I hardly ever throw a white tube. It's pretty much green pumpkin or black and blue with me. I keep it very, very simple. But in the fall, especially on the river, what I'll do is I'll take a really, really light jig head, super, super light, and let it fish in that heavy current with it, and let that current push that bait.
Right.
And man, that is just deadly in the fall.
Yeah. A jig or a soft plastic bait, especially the more shad, it don't have to imitate a crawdad or a bluegill, because there's a time when a shad colored jig or a shad colored creature or like beaver style bait or a tube will outproduce a green pumpkin or black and blue like 10-1.
Yeah. So you mentioned it. You guys are getting tubes. So what length are they, and what's kind of the specs on them?
Well, for now, we did 10 colors to start. It's a 4-inch tube, a 4-inch flipping tube. We're going to do a 3.5 and a 3. But for now, I thought the 4 would probably be the best seller. And I got thousands coming. Got really nice packaging coming. The prices are going to be good, right there with everybody else's. They're American-made tubes. You can get them a little cheaper overseas, but I wanted to be able to talk to somebody and get them how I want. And we're going to start off with the 4s, then do the 3.5, and just keep expanding it. We got like a couple-year plan, but hopefully in the next 2 or 3 months, we'll have plenty of spinner-based, buzz-based jigs. And I sold a lot of football jigs. There's a store out in East County, out close to San Diego, called East County, and they always tell me that I've got the best selling jig in the store out there. And the only jig of mine that they sell is the football jig. And what I did is, and I know a lot of guys on the Tennessee River are going to disagree, and that's fine. Maybe someday we'll come out with one, but like when I'm flipping a jig or swimming a jig, I want a big heavy hook, because I'm using, like, normally if you're flipping it, you got a short line. I use big stout rods, and I don't want to open the hook up, but I never understood the whole concept of throwing a football jig with a thick wire hook, with a heavy hook. You know what I mean? Like, because you got a long throw, and it's a myth. You know, I hear guys say all the time that fluorocarbon don't stretch. That's a myth. Yes. Fluorocarbon does stretch, and some brands stretch a lot. They may not stretch as much as Big Game or Strand, you know, like the monofilaments, but they still stretch. The only way to get a line that don't stretch is to get braid. So if you think about this, I do a lot of offshore fishing in the summer months. And I can throw a 3/4 ounce football jig a long way. And I even throw a 1 ounce sometimes, you know, when they want it a little quicker. Yeah. But you can throw that a long way. And then you just think about how much your rod gives. I don't care if it's I usually use a 7.3 heavy or 7.4 heavy for offshore fishing like that. It still gives. And then if you've got out 60 feet of line, and that would be nothing with a football jig on a long throw, well, that fluorocarbon is going to stretch 3, 4, 5 feet. How do you drive that big heavy hook home in a big fish's mouth, especially if you hit the bone? So what I did is we got a little lighter wire Mustad. It has a little longer shake. I don't know if it's the same hook they put in like the Strike King Tour Grade footballs. I know theirs is a Mustad, but I don't know. Maybe they have one made for themselves. But it's a lighter wire. It's a 60-degree bend, but it has a turned eye as well. And then we put a little bit softer weed guard in it. It's got a little lighter 30-strand weed guard, because if you think about it, like, I was a paramedic for years, almost 20 years, you know, a long time. And when you start an IV, you take a big 16-gauge needle. You got to really push to get that through the skin. You go down to a 20-gauge, and it pops right in there. It's the same way with that, making that long throw with a football jig, because you're rarely catching them straight underneath your boat with that football jig. So I wanted something that I honestly believe, with the hook that I got in mind, that you can just, if you just hold the line tight, they'll set it themselves. So, and I catch multiple 6-pound fish a year on a football jig out offshore, and I've never had my hook. I've had guys tell me, "Oh, that ain't heavy enough, you know, for big fish." I've never had the hook open up ever. But I would like to hear what other people think, you know, because I'm always game. If there's a market, enough guys that want a heavier hook football jig, I wouldn't throw it myself, but I always like to hear other guys' experiences and hear what. I mean, it's just you and I tonight, so I'm just telling you how I feel about that with the long throw baits.
Yeah, now with that hook set on a football jig like that, do you typically kind of reel into them a little bit more than like a real heavy jig hook set, or are you still putting the hook pretty solid on?
Yeah, I fish with Bill Owen all the time, and he's always getting on me about slacklining them, you know. So, but when I'm fishing out there offshore, I wind down, and it's just more of a sweep set, kind of like you would with a Carolina rig, you know, like Carolina rig hook set is a little different. And look, I never miss them, hardly ever. And I never lose them with them lighter wire hooks. And I wouldn't care whose brand I used. You know, the Strike King Tour Grade is a really, really good football jig because it has the right hook in it. You know, it's not like a big 60-degree flipping hook. You know, I've got a 5/0 in most of my flipping jigs, and it's a big stout hook because I might be selling it to somebody who's throwing them on braid and they only got 15 feet of line out. I don't want it to open up, but I feel like a football jig is just the opposite. You just want penetration.
Yeah, and when you hear jig, a lot of times, a lot of people's mind goes right to heavy hook, heavy line, heavy rod, heavy all that stuff. But yeah, football jig's a little bit different game.
Yeah,
than if you're up close flipping.
Yeah, and while we're on I guess we didn't really have a subject tonight, but like the guys that fish all the time, they know this. They don't need to hear it from you and I. But I would like to think that a lot of guys that watch these podcasts are newer fishermen and they're trying to learn. I mean, I know I watch everything I can still because I'm always wanting to learn from somebody, you know, and I read what I can. But like a lot of guys don't realize like I got guys call me and they want to know if I make a 1/4 ounce football jig. And to me, a football jig is mostly for offshore fishing and rock and stuff like that. I'm not sure why you want a 1/4 ounce football jig unless you're fishing just maybe super shallow somewhere and trying to drag a football jig. But I encourage guys like to play around with the heavier sizes, like even flipping. In our original flipping jig, we make 3. I don't even make a 1/4 in it, and I probably should make a 1/4 in that one because a lot of guys on the river flip a 1/4. But we make 3/8, 1/2, and 5/8. And I can tell you this much. anybody that doesn't throw a jig a lot, speed of fall is probably way more important. And what kind of legs you have on the, what kind of trailer and the rate of fall, I think is much more important than the color. Like I flip a 5/8 ounce jig. Once it gets warm in the summer, I can tell you this much. I don't start with a 3/8. I know most people probably do. I feel like I catch as many as they do. I mean, a lot of the times I start with a 5/8 because I think when them fish aren't very aggressive, they're feeding very little part of the time when we're fishing, I think, actually actively feeding. And I just think like those 5/8 and even like a 3/4 ounce flipping jig, there's a lot of times when it's just like when fish aren't biting, I don't buy into the whole thing. When the water's warm, always trying to finesse them. A lot of times you want a fast fall reaction bite. Like the faster it falls, the better.
Yeah.
And I'm sure of that. I mean, I fished with a lot of different people, and I've seen it too many times. And like Kurt Cox really kicked my rear end a couple years ago. Early in the year, the water was in the low 40s, and him and I were fishing, and the fish were actually up real tight on the bank and they were on laydowns on gravel banks, and Kurt's a great guy. He assistant director he weighs all the fish for the IBF here in Indiana, and he like really put on a clinic and give me a lesson. And the difference was I didn't have a 1/4 ounce flipping jig in the freaking boat, and Kurt had a black and blue 1/4 ounce, and he put that on, man. And I mean, he just proceeded to wreck them, and they would not bite that heavier jig that day, not at all. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there are times flipping and stuff when the quarter's better, but it was cold and it wasn't much breeze. It was kind of, they didn't want it, but I'm a firm believer that, like if I throw a football jig, I throw a 3/4 75% of the time. I only put on a half if it's really shallow rock piles or gravel bars or I just think that all that rooting around there, and I think that quick fall is, I don't know what your opinion, how your feelings is, but I like that fast fall when the water's warm. And something else too that a lot of guys getting started don't think about. The guys that have fished a while, they know this already, but if you're just getting started, you can really speed or slow your jig down by the kind of trailer. Like, let's just take Strike King trailers before. They got 3 really good jig trailers, in my opinion. They got a Rage Crawl, which is really aggressive, big flappy. They got the Rage Bug, which everybody is like a beaver, but it has a little less flappy legs. And then you get a beaver. And I had an in-ground pool for years, and then I had an above ground before that. And I have played so much. Like there is you can take a 1/2 ounce jig, and you can put those 3 trailers, different trailers, and say you put it in the 8 feet deep part of the pool, or whatever your deepest, and you count how long it takes that to get to the bottom with the different trailers, and you're going to be shocked.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll add another trailer in there too. Is the Strike King Menace, the Menace?
Yeah. Not very bulky, but kicky legs, and and it'll surprise you how much. Like you take a 3/4 ounce football jig, and I normally throw them with 16-pound gamma fluorocarbon. Sometimes I throw them with 20 at my home lake because there's a lot of zebra mussels and stuff, But you take a 3/4 ounce football jig and you put a Rage Crawl on there, and I use the full length Rage Crawl, not the jig one, and I cut about 1/2 inch off the head. You'd be shocked how much that Rage Crawl slows that big 3/4 ounce jig down when it's falling.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily, you're not trying to necessarily match a profile of anything. You're really controlling rate of fall is what you're looking for in those trailers.
Yeah. I think so, but there are some days like Lowen and I have this joke when we're fishing together, like, do they want kicky legs or not kicky legs? So I think the action and the speed of fall, like some days they're real aggressive and they want a trailer that has a lot of kick and moves a lot of water. And then some days they don't, like some days you put a beaver on there, or you put like a Zoom Super Chunk, or the big salty chunk is great. Or like the old Pork Frogs, they have hardly no action at all. And you got to kind of let them decide. But the speed of fall, you could probably take, if you started off and you wanted to learn how to fish a football jig, you could probably buy a 1/2 ounce, buy you a selection of 1/2 ounce, and you could use the different trailers to get it to fall faster or slower for a minimal investment until you kind of figured out what you like or what the fish wanted that day. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but.
No, I totally agree. I fish a swim jig a lot. So
yeah.
I'm same way with a swim jig. I only take a 1/4 ounce with me. We only have so much room in a kayak. So almost all of my swim jigs are 1/4 ounce, and depending on where I want to fish in a water column, I just change my trailer out. Is what I do, because you're swimming that jig, and if you have something more lift on it with kick, big kicky legs, that's going to lift that bait up, and it's going to fish higher in the water column. And I've been crushing them this year. I probably shouldn't say this, but I've been crushing them this year already on a swim jig, super shallow.
Right.
Talking inches of water. And you can't have a big bulk, you can't have a crazy big bulky trailer on it. Something like that Menace is great for that, because it kind of keeps that bait up a little bit and helps it rise in that shallower water.
Yeah, well, when Lowen won at the St. Johns River this year, see, that's where he won at, wasn't it? St. Johns River. He told me that, and Billy's a master with a swim jig, and he changes trailers, and he primarily throws a 1/4, just like you and I do.
Mm-hmm.
But he changes his trailer a lot to change up. And he told me that those fish would not bite like a speed crawl or any of the standard jig trailers. And he put the big speed crawl, has the much bigger arms, and it flaps and slows it down, slowed the jig way down. And that's how he could catch some fish. He said that he could not get bit on any trailer where you had to move it faster. You kind of had to float it along with a lot of action.
And that's
the secret to winning $100,000 that week.
Right. That's so hard to figure out and key in on too on the water. Like, it's amazing to me those guys are able to learn that quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you remember Ryan Heidelberg on the staff, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
He moved, lived in Idaho, moved here. He hated Indiana after 3 or 4 or 5 years, and he moved to Washington now, right on the Idaho border, so he could elk hunt and stuff. And I drew Ryan out. This was a big lesson this day. I drew Ryan out at Brookville at an IBF, and I was throwing like a 1/4 ounce chatterbait with a Kitech on the back of it. And so it was kind of bulky, and it's got them ribs, and I could wind that 1/4 and keep it pretty high in the water column. And I had a limit, like within a couple hours, I had a decent limit, and he hadn't caught any. Well, when the sun started coming up, and it wasn't very windy that day or anything, and I saw this because he proceeded to kick my rear end. He put on the same chatterbait I had on. It was just a plain old white original chatterbait, one of the cheap ones. But he had a Strike King trailer. I don't know what it's called, but it has a tail on it like that, but it's real thin and not very bulky. And he catches like 5 behind me, and I'm like really starting to get my feelings hurt. And I'm like, what the hell? I haven't had another bite. And I think what happened is the sun come up, those fish moved a little deeper in the water column. And he's like, well, I said, daggone, dude. I said, I can't even get bit now. And I knew I only had like 9 or 10 pounds in the boat, which is decent for Brookville. But I'm like, I don't get it. And he's like, well, the only difference is the trailer. So he catches like a couple more keepers. He's calling, and I still don't have one. And I said, well, give me one of them trailers. When I put that little trailer on, it was still a boot tail, but it was a thin body. And I'm not sure what they call that.
Yeah.
Something or other.
Yeah, I know it has a flatter side on it.
Yeah, it has a body. It's more like kind of like a skinny fluke, but it has a boot tail. I put that on there and caught 3 or 4 more keepers that day. And I noticed immediately when I would it was deeper in the water. Like it was, because a lot of the time mine was with that boot tail and all them ribs on that Kitech and a light head. Mine was, I could see it. And immediately reeling the same way, like it would fade and get deeper and deeper out of sight. And I would actually feel it hit the bottom once in a while. And then I asked him, I said, are you hitting bottom with yours? And he said, yeah, hit the bottom once in a while. And we both ended up with a good limit. And I honestly believe that if I had not got a trailer from him, I wouldn't have caught any more. So it's just amazing. To me, that's the fun part about fishing. It's never boring, because even if we go out there and we think that they're just not biting, that's bull. I mean, I know some days they bite better than others, and there's periods throughout the day when everybody catches them, and then there's dead periods. But there's always a way to catch them. If we don't, we just didn't figure it out.
Yep. We last night I fished a boat tournament and was fishing with a buddy of mine, and we caught, I don't know, it was like 4 fish in the first hour and a half.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the night never got another bite. And it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, did we run out of fish? Possibly. The conditions change, possibly, but they were biting somewhere. We just didn't
Yeah,
run into
the fish changed and you didn't, and that's the hard part. Like that's really hard if you think about it. I mean, and that's what makes fishing fun, because like you ever go places where the fish is so good that after a day or two it gets boring.
Yeah.
Like to me, going like I know guys are going to say Phil's lost his mind. I've been to St. Clair a lot. I've been
I
up
knew
there
you were
for a
going to
week.
say that.
I've been up there for a week at a time, and I'm going to tell you, when you first go, it is so awesome. And then after a day or two, it's the most boring freaking week of all. I mean, I know that sounds dumb, but my wrist gets sore from if you're fishing a lot with a spinning rod, your wrist starts to get sore. I guess I'm a sissy. So it makes my wrist sore. And like hell, when I go up there, dude, we'll change it up and we'll go swim jigs and throw chatterbaits in the reeds for pike, and we'll fish for largemouth in the canals, because the smallies are so easy to catch when it's good that it just gets, you know what I'm saying? Like when you know that all I do is throw my cricket over here, throw a drop shot over there, and I'm going to get bit right away. It's like it takes some of the, maybe I like the fishing better than the catching. Maybe I like the idea of figuring them out better than fishing. I don't know. Than catching,
Yeah. I mean, I think it was I know it was Kevin Van Dam said it years ago that he still loves catching big bass, but he loves figuring out how those big bass eat and what to throw at those big bass more than catching the big bass at times. So
Yeah.
I mean,
My cousin over. Go ahead.
I was just saying it makes sense.
Yeah. My cousin used to date this girl he lives in Franklin, Ohio, and he's our age, my age. And he used to date this girl, and her dad actually invented, I'm not going to say his name on the air, but he dated his daughter forever. He invented pound puppies. Remember when they were so big?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he worked at I think it was GM that he worked at over there, Dayton or Delphi, somewhere over there. Mm-hmm. And anyway, Mike literally did this pound puppy thing and submitted it to Mattel, and he immediately became a millionaire. Like he went from being an everyday working guy like us to like had more money than they could spend. So there's a nudist colony on the other side of Springboro, Ohio, about an hour from here. And it's surrounded, like this is a big place. I don't know, 50 acres or something or more, maybe, I don't know. But it had this big mansion on it and a butler, and it's surrounded with pine trees, like big ones, so you can't see. Well, in the middle of that nudist colony, they had like 3 of the best lakes you've ever known in your life. One of them was probably like 8 or 9 acres, and it had a big fountain. And I think it had like a big naked chick in a fountain in the middle, and it had these docks like a gazebo. Well, they fed these fish there. No one ever fished there, I guess. And so when he first bought that, this is a long time ago. We're all like pretty young, and we like can't wait. We get to fish at the nudist colony, And when you walked down on the dock, those 4 and 5 pounders would come straight to the dock because they were used to them people throwing them food. Yeah. It was the most boring place you ever went fishing in your life. It was stupid easy. Like I remember walking down on the dock, and those poor fish were so dumb. No one ever put a hook in them. Like, and I don't know if then people threw dog food to them or some kind of fish food. They would all come up there, dude, and you could literally, like, you could just take the head of a plastic worm and hook it to a hook, wacky rig, like just the head, throw it in the water, and you got one. And we used to go down there, like, and it was so much fun. But after like one summer of it, we didn't fish there so much no more because it just it wasn't very much fun.
Right.
And I know people are going to say, "Are you stupid? I want to go over there," but it got boring. So then we started night fishing with jitterbugs. We'd go over and we'd have little tourneys at night, and we would all take a black jitterbug and we'd walk around because they're all mowed around them. It's like fishing in a city park. And we would throw them jitterbugs. So that was fun for a while, but even eventually that got old,
Yeah. No, that's funny. So with PH fishing, you guys have spinner baits coming. You're gonna have some jigs, some tubes, and some soft plastic things, and then rods and apparel. Is that?
Yeah, we got rods, we got apparel, we got sun shirts, fishing shirts, but it's all sun clothing, UPF 50. We've got shirts coming without hoodies. They're all long sleeve for now, with hoodies and without. And Yeah, we got 13 models of rods coming, 10 cat, and that's going to be a while because we're working through prototypes and all that now. But we've got 10 casting rods and 3 spinning rod models coming. I mean, they're going to be bad. They're going to be badass. Is the best way. I mean, really nice rods.
Yep.
In the one, I'm thinking they're going to be around 169 or so. You know, when retail when we get started selling them. And then we just got molds. We're going to do a lot of molding in house. We just got a shooting star. We got a bunch of molds. I think we have maybe the sexiest minnow bait. It's going to be called. I'm not even going to say the name because I don't want somebody else to get it. I think it's a cool name, but it's a cool ass minnow shaking bait. And this one has a straight tail. It's similar along the designs of a what is the Crush City one, the freeloader. You know, everybody's got a version of that now. This was really sexied up. It's got 3D eyes in it and stuff. Got fins on it, and then we got another one coming with with similar shape but a minnow tail. So that one's coming, and we're going to do some really nice, cool colors. A lot of transparency light colors and flakes, color shift colors, stuff like that in them. You know, and also I think it's going to be awesome. Like awesome chatterbait trailers. Because one thing I learned the last couple of years is my favorite chatterbait trailer has always been the Yamamoto Seiko, and it's an awesome trailer. And I think don't they have a littler size now? Yep. I haven't even got it, which I think that one on that little mini, what do they call it? The baby. What's the new one? Chatterbait just come. Z-Man just come out with.
Jackhammer. Yeah,
the baby jackhammer I think will be with that little Seiko. I think that might be like the ultimate Ohio River, you know, chatterbait. You know, where we're fishing for a lot of smaller fish. But I got started, and I guess I was late to the party because everybody was doing it but me. But I got started throwing that freeloader on a chatterbait, and I couldn't believe how much more action the chatterbait had. I think that Seiko is really good in colder water when you're winding it over grass and yanking it out of grass. But maybe it's bulky enough that it's taken some of the action, because when I first threw one, I was fishing for spots a couple years ago, and when and just throwing a green pumpkin chatterbait, and when I first put one of them on there, this guy I was with said, "You got to try a freeloader on there," and I put a green pumpkin one. I couldn't believe how the chatterbait actually hunted right and left.
Yep.
It increases the action tremendously. So
by a lot, yes.
Yeah, by a lot. And then it immediately became my favorite. And for once the water gets warm. And this one that we got coming, I ain't going to post no pictures or nothing yet. I have the molds for the first one already in house. It's going to be, I don't know, a month or so before we have the one with the more the minnow shaped tail. It's not a boot tail. It doesn't wiggle or anything like that.
Yep.
But I think that's going to be like a bad. Like we're going to do a lot of chatterbait colors in it, not just stuff for minnow shaking. We're going to do the green pumpkins and black and blue. And I thought I would do like a green pumpkin orange or green pumpkin red laminate for early in the season, you know, and stuff.
I'm actually excited for it as well. I'm thinking even a drop shot bait. I think it's going to be a really, really cool little drop shot bait as well.
Yeah, our first one is 4 1/4. We'll probably add a bigger one, and definitely going to add a 3 1/4 or 3.5 inch to the lineup. But yeah, I'm excited about it. And you know what? Look, I'm going to be honest. I don't know nothing about soft plastics. Like, never made one in my life, you know. So we got all this stuff now. So I know we're probably going to spend a buttload of money playing, learning how to do the colors and all that. So I'm really excited about that because, I mean, I've probably made, man, I may be working on making 400,000 or 500,000 balsa baits now, like no joke. And I made so many that I still love doing it, and I still like painting. You know, I painted all day yesterday. I painted baits, and that's all I did. Stood there and painted, and I love the painting aspect. But it's really exciting to think about starting something new that I don't know anything about. I mean, I'm really looking forward to doing all the soft plastics. And we're going to do a Senko because Senkos just sell. Everybody's got a Senko. Everybody sells them. I thought that was a must-have. We're going to have a really nice trickworm style, you know, bait that you can wacky rig, because so many of the guys now that might be getting to be one of the dominant baits for the forward facing sonar is a really nice trick worm, whack guys wacky rigging. So, but what we're going to do is I have played with so many in a pool, and I can tell you this: 9 out of 10 finesse worms don't float. Like they don't float up off the bottom when they're laying there. And I know for a fact the trick worm don't float a jig head. It don't stand up. I don't care what anybody says.
Yep.
I played with so many. I bet you there's not many brands that I played with. I know Excite has one, and they have a big worm, like a 10-inch worm. I forget what it's called. That I encourage everybody. If you're offshore fishing with big shaky heads in the summer, it literally stands up and dances in the current. They make one, and I'm sure maybe a lot of garage builders probably do. But that's one thing we're going to have. Our finesse worms are going to stand up. If you put them on a shaky head, the tail is going to stick up off the bottom, not just lay down flat. Because 9 out of 10 of the ones that I've played with in the pool, when you move them, they'll stand up just for a split second and then they fall over. And I think that tail sticking up and waving around the bottom will be a big deal.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't mean to sound like I'm bragging, but I just think if we're going to do this, we want something that I don't think a shaky head worm should lay on the bottom. I just don't. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. It's disappointing when you have a shaky head and you plop it down on there to see the action and it just lays over slowly.
Right. And one thing I noticed too is like throwing like a Nico rig or like just nail weight and a wacky rig. Those worms that are buoyant, they got more action when they're falling than those ones that have so much salt. We're going to put some salt in ours, but I don't want them to be so salty that they don't stick up off to have so much, you know what I mean? Because if you can rig up two, and I'm not picking on anybody's brand, I don't want it to sound that way at all. I just think there's a place for one that floats. And I've noticed you can hook one in the middle and you can hook one full of salt and you can hook one that has a more buoyant plastic and let them fall. And the one with the more buoyant plastic, those legs just kick like this better when they fall.
Yep. Yeah. Almost like a U shape.
Yeah. Maybe that ain't always good. Maybe that's not always what they want, but that's what Phil Hunt wants. So yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I would like to see comments on here, like anything that people think like a bait category that we don't have, or any ideas guys have for a bait, a jig trailer, anything like that. I mean, I welcome all the comments, and if you don't like something that we make, I welcome that too, as long as you're not a jerk about it. You know what I mean? If there's something that that we build and you think, hey, I mean, don't call me and say, well, you feel cut a 1/16 of an inch off the lip, that bait will be better. I mean, like truly, like ways to make a bait better. Right. I'm always open to that, and a lot of suggestions guys have made, I've tried it. Some works, some didn't.
Yeah.
Like huh?
Go ahead.
Well, I had a comment the other day by I'm not going to say his name. He's going to be on the podcast pretty soon. One of the touring MLF pros, and he gets baits from me. And he told me the other day, and this guy knows what he's talking about, and I done tried it. He's right. He's like, dude, your plopping pea is awesome, but he's like, you know what I think would make it better? And I'm like, what? And he's like, it's so buoyant. He said, I think if you put a bigger belly weight in there, it'll set a little deeper and it'll throw more water when you wind it. And I said, you think so? And he's like, yeah, but he said, I know, because he bought a dozen from me a while back. And he said, I put suspense strips on the belly and put a bigger hook. He said, you wouldn't believe how much more water it threw. So I played with the bigger belly weight. So in the future here, all the new ploppers are going to have, and that you wouldn't even know it if you bought one from me. But they just won't be quite as buoyant. I mean, they still float, but he's right. If you could get them like just an eighth of or quarter of an inch or however, it's probably about how much deeper it sets, how much more water that blade throws in the back. I think it makes it a much better bait.
Huh. I'll have to try that out.
I probably shouldn't even have mentioned it and just did it, because now somebody will call me and say, I can't believe you're going to change it. The new one will be junk. You know how that always goes.
Oh, yeah. That's the way it goes. So.
But this guy's won millions. I can tell you that. And he throws it a lot. And he knows exactly what it needs. I'm not going to argue with him.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Phil, as always, great talking with you, and great catching up with what's going on there at PH Custom Lures and PH Fishing as well. So I'd encourage everybody to kind of keep an eye out. Keep an eye out on your page on new things and what you guys are working on. And then this winter, I know you've been discussing. Sounds like you're going to be doing a little more sports shows than what you have in the past.
Yeah, going to be at Knoxville, Indy, maybe the Alabama Fishing Expo. I know there's a waiting list for that. I would like to get into the Collinsville show over by St. Louis. I heard it's a really awesome show. Maybe do Columbus, Ohio. And another thing while we're on it, I know we already been on here almost an hour, is I'm really actively searching for pro staffers. And if they take care of us, we'll take care of them. You get a pretty good discount. I've got guys, get me, if a guy's willing to get stores and do some promotional stuff, you can get free baits and stuff. But I'm definitely looking for active pros for pro staffers who understand it's a two-way street, doing little reels or TikTok, anybody who does anything with social media, I'm definitely interested in. Yeah. And within the next 6 months, by fall, PH is going to be almost a one-stop shop. We're even going to have crappie jigs and stuff. So we're coming out with crappie fishing stuff that appeals to everybody is what I want, So, and the way to get, I guess I ought to tell you how to get a hold of him. Mario Mills has been on here. He might be on here in a week or so again. Mario's the pro staffer, great guy. I've never had one pro staffer say that they didn't like Mario. You can get a hold of Mario. It's PH Custom Lures, just like it sounds, Pro Staff 1, and it's PROSTAFF, and then the number 1, not spelling it out ONE. So PH Custom Lures, Pro Staff 1 at gmail.com. Just shoot an email to Mario, tell him you're interested in being on the staff. He'll tell you what you need to do. It's super simple. You'll get a discount code, which saves you. I think the minimum code saves what, about $6 or $7 off of balsa bait.
Yep.
Yeah, save $6 or $7 off of balsa bait, and then from there the sky's the limit. If you do what we need you to do, I move guys up, and don't forget about the Solar Bat sale going on. They've always treated me really good. They're great glasses. It's nice to do business with an American company, with a company that's not so big. So when you call them and talk to them, you're actually talking to the people who own the place,
right? Not
somebody who could care less about who you are or where you've been,
Yep, absolutely. All right, Phil, I think we'll wrap this one up for this episode. We'll see you guys next week. And remember, take somebody out in the outdoors and go enjoy it.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, guys.